Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Sydney. I have a 2-year-old daughter named Alice and a wonderful boyfriend of 4 years. Today I just thought I would finally record the video of Alice's surgery, kind of like the story time per se. So let's get into it. So basically, if this is the first video you guys are watching, Alice was diagnosed with a BPS or CPS, bronchopulmonary secretion, which is a mass off of her lung, and it's fed by an artery from her heart. I believe that's what it was. I think that's what the surgeon said. We figured it out whenever, sorry if the camera is shaking, she's playing on the chair where I have the camera sitting, but we actually went in for the 20-week ultrasound, I believe it was, to see if she was a boy or a girl. And then my OB at the time actually took us back in a room and told us that we had to go to a different hospital because whenever she was born, she would possibly have to have a level 3 or 4 NICU to stay in if she didn't come out breathing or whatnot, because they didn't know the depth of the mass. So we had to go down there and have special ultrasounds so they could measure like the mass and see how it was growing. But as she grew, it got smaller, so that was good, and she came out breathing and just fine on her birth date. So, well, on the inducement date, I guess. But yeah, the hospital that was doing her surgery wasn't the same hospital that I had her at, but they were kind of like conjoined, sort of. It is about 45 minutes away from where we were living at the time. We actually had to go and stay at a hospital the night before just because we had to get up really, really early to be at the hospital at 6:30 a.m. because her surgery was supposed to be at 7:30 a.m. And we actually stayed at a hospital, and it was kind of different because since she was 6 months old at the time of her surgery, they went through like the breastfeeding and the formula feeding type of schedule. And her last formula bottle was at, I want to say, 1 a.m. And then her last bottle that she could only have was at 4:30 a.m. And then we all finally got up at 5:30 a.m. to get ready to go to the hospital. And I mean, the hospital wasn't too far away, but it was kind of like down the street and around the corner. And so we got ready, we got our bags packed, and we got everything situated. Finally went into the hospital at 6:30 a.m. We checked in, we sat down in like this little room type of thing, like the waiting room. And then we sat there for about 10-15 minutes, and then the nurse called us back, and she kind of went over everything. She asked when her last bottle was and stuff like that, and went over like the medications and stuff, if she had any. And then the doctor actually came in, talked to us about the surgery and what he was planning on doing. So basically it was on her right side, and basically they made 3 incisions, one to insert the instruments in, one to insert the camera in, and one to put the drain tube in. And he was basically saying that we were praying that it was going to be on the outside of the lung, because prior to her surgery, we had about 3 appointments. One was before I was pregnant, or while I was pregnant, and he kind of was discussing it, and we had a whole bunch of people there. And then one was after her surgery when she was a little bit, yeah, it looks good. Whenever she was a little bit younger, just to see what it was, like go over it and check out the ultrasounds from the hospital that I had her at. Finally, we had her, I think she was around 4 months old, and what they done was they actually put her under for an MRI, and they sent her through just to see, you know, a clearer picture per se of the mass. And basically he said that it was 1.5 inches, maybe half an inch at the surgery day up at that time. So whenever we went in, he was kind of discussing all of that, and how we were praying for it to be on the outside of the lung, because we didn't really know per se on the MRI image that was seen. If it was on the inside of the lung, he would have to go in and deflate the lung himself and then extract it, that's just a more invasive surgery. And then on the MRI, there was actually some blood flow going to, or on one of the ultrasounds or something, there was actually some blood flow going to the mass, and he didn't really know what the vessel was from, I guess. And then he initialed the side that the mass was on, and they, put the bracelets on, they put her in her own gown, and we actually had a little prayer blanket that Damien's grandma had purchased and put like a little blessed patch on, and we asked if that could be, with her, and they took this little snuggle bug and the blanket with the prayer patch on it, and then they expected me to just hand her over. And I was crying and handing her over for her being so young and to have such a invasive surgery like that, it was kind of overwhelming for me. And I mean, everybody was crying. He was like, "You're going to have to take her from me." And the surgeon was like, "I can't take her from you. You have to hand her over." So I handed her over, and she went with him willingly. I loved her surgeon. I love him so much. He done such a great job on her. They walked down the hallway, and I saw her get on the elevator, and then that's the last I seen of her for a little bit. So they took us to the waiting room, and they handed us like a little cell phone type of thing. And they said, whenever the doctor has some updates for you, we will page you on this, and then you come up to the desk and we will give you the phone, and basically it's like the nurse, and she'll give us updates. There were only us and another group of people in there at the time, and what was really hard for me was we were in that waiting room for about 2 to 3 hours, and I didn't really expect it to be that long without any updates. Meanwhile, there were families coming in and out, and we were the only ones staying in there for a long period of time. And I was starting to get worried because he said that it would possibly only take an hour. So to be in there for about 3 hours was kind of worrisome to me. And his nurse never called, nothing. And so I was getting kind of panicked, I would say. And then the phone went off after about 3 hours or so. And excuse her messy hair, she just woke up a little while ago. And so I basically ran up there, and she said, "Okay, Dr. So-and-so, we'll see you now." And so they put me and Damien into a room, and he came in and he had photos, which I don't know what I did with them. I can't remember where I put them at, but I will insert them somewhere on the screen. He said that the mass was on the outside of the lung, so that was really, really amazing. And that she was doing well, she was still asleep, and that we could see her soon and he would let us know. And then he handed us the photos, and I basically thanked him so much and went about that. And then we went back out, sat down, and then I don't think it was a nurse, I think it was like more of like a guide per se, came and got us, and we got in the elevator, and we were actually on our way up to see her. And I'll insert like a whole bunch of videos and stuff at the end of the first time I seen her, and possibly throughout the night. I don't remember how much I took of that. There is a fly in here. But we went up, and then the elevator doors opened, and here came this rolly crib, and she was laying in there, and she was still asleep, and she actually had a hold of the snuggle bug or whatever, and then she was covered up with the prayer blanket, and she looked very, very peaceful. And then they rolled us into a room, and I just remember wanting to pick her up, so I So the nurse picked her up for me and she handed her to me, and Alice like flipped out, did not want me, did not want anybody in the room, just wanted the nurse. And I remember that's kind of what happened with the MRI situation. But she wanted the nurse both times, and a lot of people say that is normal. I don't really know why. A lot of people say that it's normal and that their own child, because in that time I was like, she doesn't want me, I'm such a terrible mom. But then the nurse was like, no, it's okay. And so she kind of consoled her and put her back in her crib. And Alice actually brought me the little snuggle bug. But this is her little snuggle bug that she had with her in surgery. And so the nurse kind of went over what the night was going to be like, saying that she was going to be in and out checking on her. She was going to have that drain tube in, and they were going to monitor how much drainage she was having from it. And depending on that and how well she was doing, we could possibly go home the next day, which was a relief because I didn't know how long we were going to be there for. Like, I literally packed so many clothes that it was ridiculous. But, so she kind of went over that and said that we didn't necessarily have to bring in our own formula, that they had some that we could use. But she kind of went over all of that stuff. And so my parents and his parents left after they got to visit with her and see her. I mean, she wasn't really up for like playing or anything like that because she was still groggy, but they kind of sat there with us. And then it got late and everybody started getting hungry, so they went home. We actually had dinner at the hospital. And then that's whenever the night kind of started getting rocky, I would say. She started crying a lot more and fussing, and I just felt like any type of movement I would break her, kind of like whenever she was a newborn. Just because because she still had the drain tube in, and she had sutures, and she had so many wires on her that I was just like, oh my gosh. They brought in these Enfama bottles, and they were sensitive stomach, or they were like the sensitive stomach kind, and she was on a sensitive tummy diet anyways. So I didn't really think too much about it, and so I went ahead and I fed her, and it was just like crying, fussing all night. And I mean, it's normal, especially waking up from anesthetic. They can be fussy, they can be cranky and stuff like that. And so we put Mickey Mouse on, and she loves him, and I rocked her, and she just fussed and fussed, and then she finally went to sleep. So I laid her back down, and then she woke back up, started fussing again, and so I rocked her again, and I actually fell asleep in the chair with her. The first couple hours or so into the night, she was very fussy, but then later on, she kind of came out of it. So I laid her back in her crib, and she was fine. And then I just remember waking up, and she was like tangled in the wires, and so I panicked, and like I just like was untangling her really fast, and and the nurse actually came in, and she took some of the wires off so that wouldn't happen. And then she left, and like not even 5 minutes later, Alice like projectile vomited like everywhere, and she just let out a scream, and I panicked, and I called the nurse back in, and she came in, and it was like all over her gown, all over the sheets, like it was everywhere. So we changed her nightgown, we changed the bedding, and then like she just wouldn't stop crying, and she wanted the nurse because the nurse was the same one from earlier. And so she actually took her out in the hallway, and she was walking around, and Alice was consoled, and Damien just hugged me because I was crying, because I didn't really, I don't know if this is for other moms or for other parents, that like whenever your kid doesn't want you and they're in such a vulnerable state, I just felt like a POS. Like I just felt so terrible, like I was just the worst mom, my child didn't want me, and all of this stuff. And Damien was like, she's fine, it's okay, like she loves you, she loves her mommy. And the nurse came back in, and she, went over, it's okay, this happens a lot, and da-da-da-da-da. And then that next morning, everything kind of started falling back together again. She was less cranky. She was more happy. I actually caught her laughing. And then I knew that's whenever my baby girl was back to her normal self. And I mean, in the video you can tell it's hoarse, and basically that's just from the trach tube. And then the nurse came in and she checked the drainage in the tube, because it was like a little egg shape with a wire going back in, and so the fluid would just come out and into there. And I mean, it didn't really, it had a little bit but not a lot. And she said, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this. And so she went and got help and she pulled it, and I was like, it was kind of weird. I kind of wish I would have recorded it, because it's hard to explain. Like, she kind of like, it's not that she lost her breath, it's like, I don't really know how to put it. And like, I just had a weird look, and the nurse was like, yeah, that's normal. She kind of feels, you know, weird. And so she was kind of not wanting to crawl or anything, so we kind of had to force her, like put her down a little bit more, and then she kind of, you know, came to and crawled again. But the doctor kind of said, yeah, that can be normal. Like, it was a pretty decent sized mass in her chest cavity, and that she probably fell off balance without it. And so, but we packed up, we went home, and I'm actually in the process of trying to make her follow-up appointment. So here they are whenever she first came home, and here they are now. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. And if you guys have any questions, or your child is going through a surgery and you just don't really know how to cope with it or anything like that, definitely DM me or leave me a comment down below, and I will definitely get back to you, and just let you know that you have my support, you have everybody's support and prayers and everything like that, and you are not alone. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys in my next one. Bye, guys.
Hey, where'd that Mickey Mouse?
Boo! Boo! No, you're done? Are you done? Are you done?